Welcome in to the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show. Let's roll. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Triple Play Fantasy Baseball Show, a proud member of Underdog Fantasy, and I'm going to continue saying this each week to use promo code TRIPLE. Football season has not yet started. Thank goodness. That's the baseball side of my brain speaking. But that means you can draft. That means you can do deposit matches, and Underdog got you with up to $100 if you use code TRIPLE. Doc hosting again, just the menage a trois. No David again this week. Joined by LC. I feel like I normally introduce Marty first, so I'm going to go with you first. How's life?
Life's pretty good, man. Life's pretty good. I feels weird going before Marty, but this is age before beauty, clearly. I think we're all looking pretty good today. MLB waiver system, maybe not, but we'll talk about that later.
Ooh, that's a professional
Good
sneak.
teaser there.
Yeah. And we also have the aforementioned Marty Party. How's it going?
Dude, I'm great. For those in the sales business, it's the last day of the month, so it's been a grind all week, and especially today. And on a personal note, this weekend, I got to see Justin Verlander go against Miguel Cabrera one last time, and I put money on Verlander to strike him out in this first at-bat, and he did.
What were the odds?
I don't remember, but pretty good. I'll get back to you on that.
All right. And Marty mentioned for those listening on the podcast, it's probably after the 31st, but as of recording tonight, last day of October, we have September, we have one October day in the regular season, and then the postseason is here. So we're really coming down to the final stretch, and we're going to keep giving you guys that we think can make impacts on your lineups, starting with our WOW players. And we're going to start off with Hunter Goodman from the Rockies. So called up first 4 games, 5 hits, 3 RBIs, 2 runs. Now he did play in 106 games between 2 levels this year and had 34 home runs. So the power is encouraging. The average is a tale of 2 different stories. In 91 games in AA, he hit 239, 15 in AAA, albeit a small sample size, hit 371. The thing to note about Hunter Goodman, though, is he had a 25% strikeout between both levels at the minor leagues. And so far through 16 at-bats, he has a 31.6 K percentage. Marty, I'm saying a lot of bad things about Hunter Goodman. Is there positives with him?
Number one, he plays in Coors. So if you're on Yahoo or any of the other leagues, catcher eligibility, playing at Coors, that's all I need right now to at least take a look at him. Coming 2 for 4 one game, 2 for 4 the next, 1 for 3. He's batting 6th in the lineup. He's got 3 home games this weekend. He's going to be going for a little bit of fab. I think a 2 catcher league, he's fine. I think that's where you can really get the most out of him. Or if you're kind of, you're like probably not bad for like a 12-team league just to see what you can do. But I'm a wait and see right now in like a standard league.
Okay, that makes sense. And I mean, Marty hit the nail on the head. Plays in Coors and 2 catcher leagues. He's somebody that you need to scoop up, especially with that power that we've seen. Talking with the poster boy here, Luis Rengifo, second base, third base, shortstop, outfield eligible, at least on ESPN. He is this generation's Marwin Gonzalez. And the last 7 games, video game numbers, 556 batting average, 625 on-base percentage, a 1.037 slug, 6 extra base hits with 3 of those being home runs, 8 RBIs, 6 runs, 5 walks to only 2 strikeouts. Now, right now, he's at 118 games played for his career. For the season, his career high is 127, so he's likely going to smash that. But it's a tale of 2 stories. This was a guy that hit 219 in the first half, Mike Trout's back on the IL. The Angels are essentially tanking. So what are we thinking?
Well, when you look at Rengifo, it seems to be I have it on full screen. It sounds like someone popped in.
There could only be one person.
Okay. I see. Rengifo does this. He did this last year. He got hot the second half once the Angels were out of it. He backed up last season's strong season, and he's doing it again. He's going to surpass last season's numbers. One thing that you have to watch out for him, he is 335 with a 560 slugging against lefties, hitting right-handed. Against righties, hitting left-handed, he's only a 230 hitter with a 383 slug. He might be one of these guys that you maybe at some point is a full-time right-handed hitter because he's just not that effective as a lefty. But I love him. If there's a lefty on the hill, I think he's in every game start as a lefty on the field. You gotta love that. But this is Rengifo, second half Luis. That's what I'm gonna start calling him. This is the second season in a row he's done this.
No, it's a good point. And sometimes players get hot in certain months, and it's kind of that same player, fool me once, shame on you, or fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, shame on you. So maybe from a fat perspective, somebody that you're a little wary about. But we got a special guest.
Yay!
D-Mendy in the house.
What's up, boys?
Very special guests. Two of them.
Yeah.
And my niece.
That's right. Yeah,
Is this her first podcast?
I had to make sure she got her first podcast appearance. She just had a battle of Fort Knox in her pants, but she's all changed and ready to go. She's a little shy.
Oh,
She looks sleepy.
Yeah, I think she's ready for her snoo, the best gift or the best invention for babies ever. But I just came into some Luis Rengifo talk, and it sounds like Art's thinking he's strictly platooning.
I definitely if you're picking up Rengifo, he's worthy of a team streamer. If there's a lot of lefties coming up in your weekly lineups, put him in. If you have him on a day-to-day, he's perfect because you can just curate his starts to when lefties are going. I really like that. He crushes lefties.
Just had a 2-homer game the other day too.
Yeah, guess who's playing him in a home league?
Oof. I'm just here, boy. I'm just here, boys. You continue with the show. I just needed to be a part of
David,
that.
you actually came at the perfect time because the next person I'm talking about, David Schneider, is a WOW player for the second time. I went on Reddit and somebody looked at this picture of David Schneider and they said he looks like an undercover boss.
I was
That's
just saying
funny.
undercover cop or something.
undercover boss. That's I see that. I shout out to that show. It's a great show, by the way.
Also, you guys have guesses about how old David Schneider is?
24.
46.
I'll say he's 29.
David Schneider is 24.
Oh,
Oldest
geez.
24-looking-year-old ever. But we'll stop talking about David Schneider's outside life, and we'll talk about baseball instead. So over the last 5 games, a .473 batting average, 3 homers, 8 RBIs, 7 runs, and he's even shipping a steal in there. He is second base, and Marty has mentioned on previous shows how shallow second base is this year. He's hit 4th or 5th every day since he's had an everyday role with the Blue Jays over those 5 games. And Bo Bichette on the IL with a right quad strain. This is the knee that he had problems in earlier this year. And Matt Chapman with a sprained right finger on the IL. So he's locked in an everyday role. Now, what I think is really encouraging about David Schneider is he has a good walk rate, 18.4% in AAA this year, 15.8% in the majors. Yes, he does strike out a lot, but that's kind of the true outcome game of a walk, home run, or strikeout. The BABIP of 538 won't continue, but Toronto is fighting for a playoff spot. They're actually 2 games out of the last wild card, and they're going to play who's ever hot, which is David Schneider. And that's why they have him hitting in that 4th, 5th spot every day.
Mm-hmm. I would say on that BABIP this weekend, he's going the Coors, so it might stay around that. A little 500. He might be invited to a party later today either. I don't know, maybe.
Ooh, David Schneider gets invited to a party. Rated PG-13.
Oh man, I missed you guys. It's been too long.
Well, David, you can chime in whatever you want with the commentary that we have. Talking about the pitching side, Yennier Cano. So what's interesting, he's received 1 out of the 2 save chances since Felix Bautista's injury. He has 29 holds, which leads the major leagues, and he has 5 blown saves, which is blown essentially 50% of the save opportunities. He's been a Jekyll and Hyde pitcher. He had a rough July, a 4.5 ERA. The velocity on his fastball was coming down, but he hasn't given up a run in 12 August innings. But Marty, we've seen this sometimes where teams essentially don't want to move someone out of their role. I think of Adam Ottavino historically, who has been way more successful as a setup guy rather than a closer. Cano is probably picked up in most of your leagues. So I guess for the rest of this season, what are your expectations? Is he a top 5, top 10 closer if Felix Bautista is out?
I think he's closer to that 10th.
That might be our time to go. Getting fucked. She doesn't like you trashing Yennier Cano, Eric.
That's not trashing.
Yeah, so for 10 close. Your good voice is going to be on the podcast. Oh, there you go. She's going to be hosting for me any day now.
She ain't taking my job. Love you.
All right, guys. Before this takes over the show, I'll catch you guys later.
See you, buddy. Nice seeing you.
Thanks for popping in.
That was awesome. Yeah, Cano. So I think more of, definitely closer to the top 10, 11, 12 range. The rest of season projections for the bat have him for 4 more saves, for whatever that's worth. I'm worried about when, them using DL Hall, when they need a lefty or, any type of situational lefty. I can see them maybe, kind of going back and forth. But if there is one guy to own in that bullpen, it is Cano right now. But I wouldn't expect more than 4 or 5 saves moving forward, which actually is not that bad. There's only a month left. So actually, I want to put that into perspective. They also think that Trevor May, they think he's going to get 5 saves. Kyle Finnegan projected for 5 more saves. Chapman, only 2 saves. Alex Lang, 3 saves. So he's kind of in that Carlos Hernandez, Adam Ottavino, Cano. They're all around that 4. So larger leagues, you already scooped him up. In holds leagues, he's been scooped up since day 1. But shallow leagues, only if you really need it.
He is essentially what we call a handcuff, a high-end setup guy, and this is a popular fantasy football term for taking the backup running back, especially in a high-scoring offense. I stashed him in our home points league because he was someone that would just give you great ratios. You get some points for holds, obviously more for saves, but I think guys like that are just same thing with Chris Martin with the Red Sox. That's me. That's my other reliever. You can't go wrong with those guys that have great ratios because whether it's injury or poor performance from the other guys, that they always have a chance to close games.
And the Orioles are continuing to win games.
They are. Close games, too. They haven't been blowing teams out as much. We're going to go from my hometown team to Art's hometown team, and we're talking with Jordan Wicks, getting wicky with it. Debut outing, 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 earned, 1 walk, 9 Ks. And one of those hits was a leadoff home run to Gabriel Hayes. He had a little bit of trouble in that first inning, but then retired 15 in a row. Now, what is to note is he doesn't throw fast. His fastball was averaging 92.5 miles per hour in his outing, but he throws a changeup around the 80-81 range. So there is some speed variance. When you look at his stats in the minors, he had a 223 batting average, a mid-3 ERA. He does walk a decent amount of guys, around 3 per 9 this year. His next start is at Cincinnati. Both teams are fighting for wild card spots. Art, what can we expect from Mr. Wicks?
Wicks you talked about his changeup. That's the pitch that he throws most often. It's also his best pitch by scouting grades. I think it's a circle change, not a straight change. And that's just going by its movement. It's consistent, like a circle change movement as I look at it. But that changeup is good. The one problem with a changeup, and you see this in his minor league stats, is that if he doesn't have the feel for it that well, he's prone to giving up home runs. In his AA between 2022 and 2023, he gave up 14 home runs in 86 innings. That's 1.5 home runs per 9, which isn't terrible, but you know that in a place like Cincinnati, his next start at Cincinnati with their revamped outfield, that could be a bit of a dangerous start. I might not do it just because it is such a bandbox. But with his strikeout stuff, that changeup got most of the strikeouts he got in that first. Of course, he did get a few on a pretty sweet cutter. The fastball, the only strikeouts he got were strikeouts looking. But when you have a good changeup, when you got a decent cutter, you can sneak that fastball right through, little Kyle Hendricks style. They're not looking for it, just sneak a 92-mile-per-hour fastball right past him. I think he's a strong starting option. I think he's someone you want to hold. I think he's a team streamer at this point. But with a decent K upside, I just wouldn't start him against teams that have good power, because he does have a tendency to give up some home runs. Muted.
I think that's a good point, is that at this point of the year, maybe you're not playing guys, but you're picking them up to stash, because if they have another good outing, you don't want to be the one that doesn't have them, or that they be used against them. And sometimes the best offense at this point is playing defense. And even if you don't need pitching, guys like that, we're coming into the last month of the season, especially for the Cubs that are fighting for a playoff spot. If he's performing, or even SP4, SP5 level, they're going to not limit his innings. He might throw 5 to 6 each game, but they're not going to skip his turn in the rotation like you would see if he started out the year April, May. But talking with the last guy, another rookie, Kyle Harrison. First 2 MLB starts, he's 1-0 with a 1.86 ERA, a 1.14 whip, 16 strikeouts to 3 walks, including 11 strikeouts last outing versus the Giants in San Francisco. Pitching in AAA this year, he had 21 starts where he went 1-3, a 4.66 ERA, a 1.52 whip. What is to note on both levels so far is his extremely high K percentage. It's at 35.6%. He is the number 1 prospect for the San Francisco Giants. I think he is going to have such degrees of high variance games. I think we're going to see like what we did against the Reds, where in 6.1 innings, he gives up 3 hits and strikes out 11. That might be his best game of the season, but it wouldn't surprise me if he struck out 7 to 8 on a regular basis. But then if he was lit up for 7 earned in 2 innings sometimes, his expected ERA is 2.97, so over an entire run higher. He walks close to 3 per 9. This year in the minors, he was walking over 6.5 per 9. The home runs per 9 was 1.37. He's a guy that is very Jekyll and Hyde, and I think you have to expect that if you play him.
One of the interesting things, if I could chime in about AAA walks, and this has been noted on other podcasts, is that since they're using the robo-umps for balls and strikes in minor leagues, people's walk rates have improved from AAA to Major League Baseball. Not to mention that catchers are good at stealing some strikes at the major leagues, but that those high walk rates in AAA do tend to come down once they get to the major leagues.
That's a good point, Art. And even if you've heard it on other podcasts, I think it's important information to relay, especially as relevant to, when we talk about these things.
And Doc, I want to ask you, so Kyle Harrison at San Diego Saturday, would you start him?
I would.
Okay.
I would if you need it. If you're comfortable, I wouldn't.
San Diego Padres WRC plus of 117 versus lefties this year. So good versus lefties. Now, what about the second one? Home versus Colorado.
I would do that.
There we go. So maybe a pickup stash.
Yeah, just like we talk about a lot. And, we talk about 3 hitters, 3 pitchers each week. And I think the difference at this point in the season, for hitters, you're looking at people that are in good lineups and are accumulating at-bats. Quantity is more at this point in the season, because even if you play in a roto league, the one category that can drag you down in is batting average. But pitching, quantity isn't necessarily more or better, because you can get a guy that will give you more strikeouts, but could kill your ratios with 1 out of 2 bad outings. And wins aren't guaranteed. So just something to consider when you're adding these guys moving forward. But good talk, gentlemen. We'll go to our most added players, courtesy of CBS every Thursday morning. So if you have a problem, take it up with them. Yennier Cano up 40%. 71% rostered. That's crazy that it's that little, or that he was that few owned before. Jordan Wicks up 40%. Adam Duvall, Jacksonville loves him, up 29%. Kyle Harrison up 20%. Tanner Scott up 19%. Cole Reagan's up 17%. Still crazy how he's only owned in 83% of leagues. Brian Wu up 16%. And Josh Rojas, once again, at 16%. Any surprises?
I love the Woo, man. I put him as a should start last week. His first start was incredible. Unfortunately, his second start was pushed to Monday because that's how the cookie crumbles with 2-star pitchers. But yeah, nothing. Duvall's back. The power's back. His wrist is finally healed. So hopefully you can scoop him up and get that extra power here for the next month.
And he was on a homer tear to begin the season before he fractured his wrist. That Red Sox lineup has been overperforming. So definitely someone. And Jarren Duran is out for the year with toe.
Yep.
So that's actually one of the guys in the most dropped. He's been dropped 11%, not the top. Bailey Ober, this is interesting. Minnesota is 5 up on the division. And I know Bailey Ober has been struggling out of late, but to option him to AAA at this point in the season, I'm surprised they didn't move him to a bullpen role or have him be a piggyback guy.
They must know something that we don't, to make that kind of move.
That is interesting. You're right, Marty. Maybe there's something going on more than we don't know about. Jake Cronenworth dropped in 17% of leagues. He fractured his wrist, is likely out for the rest of the season. David Robertson looks like he might have lost his closing job.
Yep.
Down 11%. Nick Pivetta. This is the second straight week that he is down double-digit percents. He is not injured to my knowledge. He had a bad outing recently against the Braves. Is there something I'm missing with Nick Pivetta?
We talked about it a few weeks ago. It's just we don't know what his role is. It seems like he's going back and forth. And I'm looking now at the probable grid, and he is not in it at all. So for Boston coming up, he is, it's Paxton, Houck, Sale, Bello, Crawford. So looks like he's coming out of the bullpen again.
For Bailey Ober, I think they're preserving his arm. They're trying to limit his innings. So, I'm just going to quote Dave McDonald. Bailey's season might be Ober.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. And then rounding out the list, Chase Silseth down 11%. Oof. Christopher Morel and Brady Singer each down 10%. Art, one of my favorite sections, Bring Out Your Dead. Take it away.
Yeah. Bring Out Your Dead this week. Thanks, everyone. We had a lot of submissions this week for Bring Out Your Dead, and I thank you all for bringing it to me. There's been everyone's having their stretch run here. Everyone's remembering the season. I'm remembering mistakes I made at the draft table, including one. I wish I could have severed my ties with Luis Severino because I drafted him on a team where I was doing a pocket aces strategy, and I diverted for one pick to get Severino because I really thought that he was going to come back this season and be his old self again. The strategy of a pocket aces is you get your aces, 2 aces up top, and then you just forget about pitching for 8 or 9 rounds. I was doing that. I was sticking to the strategy. I diverted when I could have picked someone like an outfielder that I could have used and got Severino. Got nothing from Severino, and guess what? My pitching is still first, best in the league, and my hitting is so bad that I'm not even going to come close to contending. I don't know if that one draft pick would have changed it, but if I was going to bring up my dead, if Severino's not dead, I'm gonna kill that man. I'm gonna kill him, but I should kill myself for making the draft mistake. That's what I'll say. Now let's go to what you guys brought on for Bring Out Your Dead. I thank you all for writing in. I'm going to start here with T-Ball, who writes, Wander. We all know.
The thing with that is that you don't follow him back, Art.
Stop it. Follow back. No. Woo. Follow back. Everyone, this is going to be a hard one for this week for that reason. Everyone knows why Wander's on the list. I'm not gonna go into it. He's hurting a lot of teams this time of year after coming out in a breakout season Wander Franco really having a tough, really hurting a lot of fantasy rosters right now. Let's not go into why. We're going to go to Albrighty then, who brings up Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa, fairly close to Dan Vogelbach's production this season. And when you look at him, I wanted to point out what a year Carlos Correa has had. His San Francisco Giants deal fell through. His Mets deal fell through. So this is technically one of those guys that's in the first year of a big deal. But when you look at him, he's still only turning 29 in a month. So he's still pretty young. Who knows if the injury concerns that the Giants and Mets saw are the cause of this, or if it's the first year thing, if it's just a down year. Tough to say. I'm not sure where you put him next year. His draft price was depressed. It was around 130 or 140 coming into this season. Who knows where to value him for next season? Definitely further down than where he was this season. I want to also bring up Eric, who brings up Dylan Cease, who traded for Dylan Cease in a big move to try and bolster his staff for the home league, and it has not worked out. I want to point out Edward's tweet. Edward had a dog who was shivering, and the caption is Dylan Cease when anyone is on base. Dylan Cease in the second half has given up a 278, 386, 411 triple slash against him in the second half. Now, I was trying to find a player comp for that, and it's pretty close to what Paul Goldschmidt has done this season. It's a little bit lower on the slugging, or it's a better leadoff season than the breakout of Ha-Seong Kim. So to give you a little bit of, levity in this situation, Dylan Cease. Who are the top 5 rappers? Dylan, and Dylan, because I spit hot fire. So that's a little Dave Chappelle callback for y'all who remember the old Chappelle show. He spits hot fire. Dylan Cease just throws meat pitches, which get hit out at the speed of hot fire. Next, we are going to talk about Ben Agbiani, who did not mention that this was a Bring Out Your Dead. He wanted to ask about whether he should cut Zach Geloff for Spencer Steer. I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about this. I'd cut Geloff. He's won for his last 21, even though he's having a good season. I like Steer. I like the Cincinnati Reds lineup better. I think that they're going to be going for it. And I also think he's got a solid spot there. And he asked if he should activate JD Martinez or Buxton. JD's my guy in that one. I still don't know what to expect from Buxton, but mostly I wanted to point out this is probably not the Benny Agbayani, the ex-Met, who had a huge home run in the National League Division Series against the San Francisco Giants in 2002. So if it is Benny Agbayani, thank you for being a fantasy ball player and writing in AAA Fantasy Baseball Show. But Benny Agbayani, the Twitter handle, has as his picture a fantastic picture of Aaron Boone making fun of, I think, Laz Diaz, the umpire. And if you want to see the video, the John Boy video that breaks down that exchange, it was about 3 weeks ago. I think it's called Boone Tells the Ump He Stinks. It is one of the better John Boy videos of the season. I really enjoyed it. And Aaron Boone having a tough year, taking it out on Laz Diaz. Laz Diaz was not having it. Check it out. The lip reading on that one is way too good to pass up. One Bartholomew Tallman brings up Esteury Ruiz. Aaron Cameron, I think an A's fan, wants to have an honest conversation about him. Now, when you look at Esteury's percentile rankings, he's in the first in exit velocity, the first in hard hit percentage, the first percentile in xWOBA, the first in X slugging, the second in barrel percentage, the second in walk rate. A leadoff hitter who provides negative value in runs scored. He's the number 40 outfielder on Razzball, because he provides $20 of value on the season for his stolen bases. What is his total value on the season? $7.50. So therefore, the other categories, he's a negative 1250. just a piss poor season in the other categories. He's only a steals guy, and in the second half, he's only hitting 173 with 7 runs scored. If you've been keeping Esteury Ruiz on your roster all second half, you've been hurting with that production. You cannot do that. The man is a leadoff hitter who does not score runs. Of course, that's the A's, but it's also that on-base percentage that Esteury Ruiz provides. And it's really been hurting all the owners of that. Last but not least, Dr. Mike Carter brings up Giancarlo Stanton. Giancarlo Stanton, who has 4 seasons left on his huge contract for $98 million. No longer the fastball hitter that he used to be. He's hitting 200 on fastballs over 95 miles per hour this season. He's slow, can't play defense, and he's injured every season. The 99th best outfielder thus far, negative $6.40 in value on the season. The question I have, is there even potential in this bet anymore?
No, come on. Why would anyone draft Giancarlo Stanton at all this year? I mean, that's me being tongue in cheek, but he gets hurt. He is older than his age. He has played a lot of ball. Him being DH strictly or primarily will limit the amount of playing time that he has.
Especially
and to be honest,
Judge ages.
Yeah, to be honest, if he's not hitting for power, then there's no use for him.
Yeah. For Stanton, he would have to change his entire body. Like, he would have to start doing yoga, lay off the protein shakes, and just get down a leaner version of himself. But the Yankees, they're showing like they don't care anymore. Like they'll cut everybody. Like they're done with this roster. So I don't know what they're gonna do with him for the next 3 years. But I won't be owning him.
I kind of want to pose this question: when somebody says that they're having like a Giancarlo Stanton physique, we've seen Tyler O'Neill come out and he's going to be more jacked. Does this ever work out for the player?
That's a great question.
Barry Bonds, right? That's the one shining example. We're getting huge. But he was already like the best hitter in baseball. So I don't know.
He was strong and jacked, but not like not an Adonis figure.
I hear what Stanton. Judge
Tyler
has
O'Neill, Judge.
Yeah.
And you also look at someone like Barry Bonds. If your steroids help in injury prevention, so that's another thing that a guy like Stanton won't have the benefit of for his production. He's not getting the benefits of injury prevention that a guy like Bonds got when he bulked up. Yeah, I know Barry's not going to admit to it, but we all know the truth. If there was something like steroids that Stanton could take to keep his injuries down, but he's just too slowed by them at this point in his career. He's not, like you said, he's not that old, but he's old. He's old. And those are the guys that I'm putting on the cart. Wander, Esteury Ruiz, they're Stanton, Severino from your boy here. We got Dylan, we got Benny Agbayani. We're going to throw them on the cart and I'll drag them away. Sorry what they've done to you this year.
I will ask, is it against the rules? Because I don't own Esteury Ruiz in anything. But I noticed someone dropped him in my 10-team league. So I was like, if you get dropped in this league,
wait, you did a bring out your dead for somebody you don't own.
Correct. So is that breaking the rules, Art?
Nah, there's no rules. There's no rules.
No rules. It's an unwritten rule. You have to say who's causing you pain. A quick note on Giancarlo Stanton. He is younger than 2 out of the 3 guys on this pod, and it's not me. 33 years old. Oldest 33-year-old that we've seen his body age in some time. Marty, we're going to kick it back to you with your 2-star pitchers.
All right, awesome. Let me hop over to there. So this is coming up for next week, September 4th through September 10th. Now, I did this yesterday, which would be August 30th. There's already discrepancies. Sunday night is maybe when you'll get a good idea of who the 2-start pitchers are going to be for the next week. I don't even know if we should do it for the rest of the year because of how many ups and downs and how much they change and all the different type of stuff. But nonetheless, we're going to do it this week, starting with the no doubters. Garrett Cole versus Detroit versus Milwaukee. Spencer Strider versus St. Louis versus Pittsburgh. Strider tonight versus the Dodgers, just about to start. I'm excited for that one. Corbin Burns at Pittsburgh at the Yankees. Pablo Lopez at the Guardians versus the Mets. And then Logan Webb at the Cubs versus Colorado.
A lot of good pitchers that have 2 starts.
I know. This is the good one. This is the one where there's not as many take-a-seats as usual. Should start Aaron Savale versus Boston and the Mariners. Lance Lynn, who also pitches tonight versus the Braves, so we'll see there. At Miami, at Washington. Jose Brio at Oakland versus KC. He should be a risky business because he is risky business, but those are 2 of the worst hitting teams in baseball. So, larger league, you're probably going to start him, but you never know who you're going to get with Jose Brio. Tanner Bybee versus Minnesota at the Angels. Tariq Skubal looks great this year at the Yanks versus the White Sox. Merrill Kelly versus Colorado at the Cubs. And Cole Reagans, you may have heard of him. He's everywhere, baby. Versus the White Sox at Toronto. I don't even care that he's at Toronto. I'm all about him. I got him in 2 leagues. He looks absolutely incredible. Going into the risky business. So these are guys that, like, if you have a daily league, maybe start them for one of the starts, maybe not the other, or just completely can them because I can see why. Bryce Miller at Cincinnati at Tampa Bay. Jesus Luzardo versus the Dodgers at Philly. Michael Lorenzen at San Diego versus Miami. Brian Bello at the Rays versus Baltimore. Andrew Heaney, fallen from grace, Andrew Heaney, versus Houston versus Oakland. Gavin Williams versus Minnesota at the Angels. Kyle Hendricks, back from the dead and looking great the last few months. Versus San Francisco versus Arizona. Hunter Green versus Seattle versus St. Louis. Same rules apply with Green. If you're in points league, I would put him as a should start just because how many Ks he's going to get. Brandon Pfaadt versus Colorado at the Chicago Cubs. And I had Jordan Wicks here because as of yesterday, he was, but now he's been bumped up because of the doubleheader. So he will not be a 2-start pitcher for next week.
Marty, I'm surprised you had Kyle Hendricks in there. It sounds like you're kind of bullish. That was the name that kind of stuck out to me as someone that should be bumped up more than the others. Or
you think
is a different category?
Let me ask you. You're watching probably more Hendricks than all of us. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing from him? I mean, San Francisco, that's a solid matchup. San Francisco's been one of the worst hitting teams. Arizona's pretty good. Are you starting Hendricks in a 10-team, 12-team league for next week? Roto?
Yeah, I mean, I need wins on every team that I have. So okay. Yes, because 2 starts. But yeah, it is. I think he's shown that he's been really strong. That game against Milwaukee, he looks so good. He's just hitting his spots
Big
better
game,
than
Hendricks.
He's been hitting his spots better than he has been for a few seasons. So I hesitate to say Hendricks back, but I would say Hendricks back with a question mark. So yeah, I may start him. He looks so good against Milwaukee. He's been hitting his spots.
I was going to say he had a really rough outing the first matchup of the month against Atlanta, where he gave up 7 earned in 4 innings, which actually isn't that bad when you're pitching to Atlanta. But Atlanta's since then, 29 innings pitched, 8 earned runs.
That's good. And looking at the WRC plus of, let's see, for San Francisco, let's see where they at over the last.
Marty, you're the WRC plus guy of the show.
Yeah, man, it's an easy one for teams to kind of see where league averages with this is around 100. To put that in perspective, San Francisco WRC plus over the last 2 weeks versus righties 88, so way under. And then the Diamondbacks, where you at, Arizona? 14th, so 98. So yeah, I don't have a problem boosting them up to a should start. It's going to come down to if you need the wins, and you don't care that he won't get any. He probably won't get a strikeout.
We dedicated this segment to Kyle Hendricks, and now watch him get bombed after we make a.
That's what happens. I hope not. I got him in the triple players ball, and I am falling to 2 overall because Lucas Giolito. It's my fault for playing him, but him and a couple of it doesn't matter. We're moving on.
It might be the best thing for you that he was put on waivers and potentially skips a start.
No joke. Here are the ticket seats. Ken Waldachuk versus Toronto at Texas. Zach Thompson at the Braves at Cincinnati. That's going to be a tough week for Zach. Peter Lambert at the Diamondbacks at San Francisco. And Luis Ortiz versus Milwaukee. And then at the Braves. Oh, and Jesse Schultens at KC at Detroit. If you're extremely desperate against those two teams, go ahead. But Jesse's not very good.
He isn't. But
and those are my 2-start pitchers.
Yes! Put the cap on the segment, Marty. There we go. We missed that last week. But, Marty, we're going to stick with you. We're going to go to your party, and then we're going to talk about what has been the week in Major League Baseball with the whole Angels situation.
All right, let's quickly hop into these then. Marty's party. So this is for this weekend. Sorry, weekend hitting streamers for Friday, September 1st through the 3rd. Charlie Blackmon versus Toronto, Anthony Volpe at Houston, and Davis Schneider at Colorado as well. Yes, he's making his second appearance on the show here. Charlie Blackmon, Colorado outfielder. You know, he's been there for forever. 41% roster in Yahoo. 3 games at Coors. He's leading off every day. The last 2 weeks, 2 home runs, 11 runs. So if you're looking for runs, he's sitting right at the top of that lineup with the 473 OBP and the 556 slug. Charlie Blackmon at home versus the Blue Jays. Anthony Volpe, New York Yankees shortstop, 50% rostered. 3 games in Houston. He's now batting 5th in that lineup since the Yankees have just let everybody go. And he actually had a home run today. So this is not including this home run. But over the last 2 weeks, he has 3 home runs, a stolen base, 5 runs, and 7 RBI. He's going to strike out probably 3 times a game. But that one time he gets a hit, it might be a home run. So make sure you
it was then in the 9th inning today, too. He's clutch.
Did it again. And then David Schneider, Toronto Blue Jays, second baseman, 31% rostered, 3 games in Coors. We talked about it. Bichette, Chapman, both out. He's hitting 4th, 5th in the lineup. Over the last 7 days, 3 bombs, stolen base, a 1.235 slug. I didn't come up with who I think should be who I'm going to invite. So I want to ask you guys, who should be coming over this weekend? What
do you really have to ask me?
Yeah.
My pick is Davis Schneider. Davis Schneider gets invited to a party, rated PG-13, hosted by Marty Tallman.
Can't argue with that. Mr. Schneider, welcome to the party. And in Colorado, maybe indulge a little bit in the greenery there and have a great time. I love that city. Denver's a beautiful place.
Davis Schneider smokes marijuana in a state where it's legal by Rob Schneider, rated PG-13. Is Davis Schneider the guy?
Wait, what? Yeah, he was.
Oh.
That's why I didn't even ask Art. We already got it.
We love it. We love a party that Davis Schneider's invited to, Marty. You can bank on me and David crashing that one.
Perfect.
Guys,
bring the little one.
Yeah. Guys, I want to finish out the show talking about the week that has been with the Los Angeles Angels, because I can't remember a time that we have ever seen this happen. I don't know about you guys. I know you've been following baseball a little bit longer. But essentially at the trade deadline, the Angels, who already have a weak farm system, give up some of their top prospects for Lucas Giolito, for Reynaldo Lopez. Those were the big names. And come Tuesday, before the end of August, essentially 1 month rental, they're putting these guys on waivers. They know they get no compensation in terms of players. All they get is salary relief. And in essence, they're just saving 1 month of their salary. Like 1 month for players they just traded for. It's an extremely frugal move. And I don't say that in a good way. This is a huge black eye in the Angels organization. So I want to start there first before we go to kind of the second part of this. I mean, I'll just open up the floor. What are your guys' thoughts?
Go ahead. No, Art.
I just want to push back. They are, by dropping these players, they are getting below a threshold where their compensation, if they lose Ohtani, which they will, is going to be a higher compensatory draft pick than it would be if they had not gotten beneath the threshold.
Thank God Art is in law, because without that, it's unbelievable. You have to be so smart just to be able to figure out the most sorry, I interrupted, but
no,
it sounds like you're reading a contract or like a clause.
So they were over a threshold, and they saved like $6 million or something like that, I can't remember. And that brought them from so their compensatory draft pick for losing Otani will go from a fourth to between the fourth and fifth to between second and third, which is it's significant, but we're talking about drafting an 18-year-old. Yeah. So it does kind of, it is something. It's not a lot, I don't think.
Yeah. I'm more of just interested to see because like they used to have it where, and I forgot what the name of the old system was, but they got rid of it. So this is the new system where they're just going to just drop people, if they don't want to have to pay them. But I think it's interesting that only a few teams took advantage of this. Like the Angels really took advantage, and then the Tigers did with Jose Cisnero, Yankees with Harrison Bader, and there was somebody else as well. But I'm more interested to see like the strategy of it. Why did one team go fully into it and no one else did it? Pretty much. So I don't know. It's been a weird week in that regard.
I was saying, I tweeted this out earlier. The Angels have done essentially everything wrong. They hit on a generational talent with Mike Trout, but they didn't surround him with pieces. If there was a point where they should have traded him and gotten a massive haul, now he's somebody that has been injured for extended periods most years. They could have traded Otani at the deadline and gotten a haul back, and they didn't. Instead, they mortgaged their future when they were over 5 games back and realistically had no shot of winning the division. It was going to be a wild card spot. They got these guys for 1 month rentals and everything we've talked about, but just even from the PR perspective.
Yeah, what I thought of this like a few weeks ago. It reminds me of when LeBron James left Cleveland the first time, where kind of everyone knew he was going to leave, but they still went all in. They got absolutely nothing on it, and then he left. It was just like, I don't know how you don't trade Otani. I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, and now you don't have to worry about paying him that contract. You're the GM that traded him away, but if for some reason he didn't live, and we've seen now they pitched him through a torn UCL.
Yeah,
they could have just had him be DH, but now you're not that GM that pays him that astronomical salary, and not saying he would ever have the rest of his career like Steven Strasburg, but that's going to haunt the Nationals for a while. That is arguably one of the worst contracts in the history of sports. And you could have not had that burden on your shoulders. You could have put it on somebody else. It's very mind-boggling. And I think the Angels should be punished in a sense. I don't think Perry Minasian.
I'll say, aren't they already being punished?
You know what, though? There, I guess, consequences. Like the GM, Perry Minasian, I think, if that's how you say his last name, I think he should be out of a job without a question. It seems like he's a big guy that's backed by the owner, Artie Moreno.
And Artie's very active, and that's been one of the hugest problems since his tenure. So he may just be the GM might just be a puppet.
There might, I don't want to say people not go to games because that's how the cities lose their teams. I doubt the Angels would ever lose because they're in Los Angeles / Anaheim. But I feel like fans should go on strike because very rarely do I say that fantasy baseball analysts could do a better job than an actual GM. But this is one of those instances where I think, yes, common sense should have prevailed. I don't know, but it's embarrassing for the organization.
Do you think maybe they didn't want to trade him because they knew his UCL had that in there and he wouldn't be able to pass the physical?
That's a good point.
I'm trying to make sense of just such a stupid situation.
I mean, don't you think a team, though, even if they know he had a torn UCL and he would only be DH like Bryce Harper, that it's valuable for a team looking to do a playoff push? Even if it was a team that was looking to do a rental, a la Trey Turner, let's keep him for a postseason push and see if we can win it all.
Yeah, Shohei Ohtani could have been a shot to the arm to that farm system that, like you said, they traded 2 of their top prospects to the White Sox to get Giolito. Instead of trading away, they could have added to that system, a system that has been ranked consistently in the bottom of the MLB as far as farm systems. Yeah, it would have been a good time to move it. I mean, we all would have been saying, oh, can you believe? I mean, we might have said, can you believe you have Ohtani, you have this generational talent, and you don't go for it? I mean, it could have been damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I for me, the bigger aspect of this week was what happened once all those players were dropped, and how the system works to pick up players. Because as Marty said, this changed. It used to be if you put in a waiver claim, you had to work out a trade. This was the way you can get a player picked up in August. A player would go through, you put in a claim, then you could work out a trade. You had to send, Rob Silver. I tweeted back and forth with him, I don't even know. I tweeted back and forth with him. He's like, yes, you get a 27-year-old relief pitcher in single A sent back to your team, but you did have to give something up when you put in a claim for one of these players. The way it works now, every player, like the A's could have picked up every player that was dropped if they wanted, every single one. And they didn't, because that would have been really stupid. But if you're trying to fight for a playoff spot, these are valuable players, and you had to give up very little. You had to drop someone you had to have room on your 40-man roster or make room on your 40-man roster. It's the only thing you had to do. And as we see, the Indians picked up 3 players and the Reds picked up 2 players. The Giants, we just talked about how poor their offense is. They're a game up on the Reds right now. They would have loved to get Hunter Renfroe. I'm sure they would have been happy to get someone like Harrison Bader to help their team. They couldn't, because they were 1 game up on the Reds. The Reds were able to bolster a problem area on the team, picking up 2 valuable MLBers, 2 established major league players, one who's a very good defender in Harrison Bader, one who's a power bat in their home run happy ballpark, for dropping Alejo Lopez, a 27-year-old who hasn't played in the major leagues this year, and Michael Ciani, who I don't even know who that is. They were able
member of the Mafia.
Yeah, Michael Ciani is a member of the Mafia. This is unfair. I think, and I think it's gonna, like, this system. If teams are gonna start doing this is a system that needs to be reworked.
Almost feels collusionary.
Yeah, it could be.
It feels like it's on the line, or like a team like the Guardians that, like, I don't know where the Twins are in the queue or in the waiver order prior to the Guardians. The Guardians, who are 5 games back of the Twins, I think if they were really active and wanting to win, they would have done something at the trade deadline instead of trading away Josh Bell. But this almost seems like a defensive move. Like, we don't want our in-division rival to get these players, so we're just going to claim all 3.
Yeah, with the Guardians specifically, they took 2 out of 3 versus Minnesota. So that kind of got them back into it. Now they have a series coming up here. I forgot who. And then they play Minnesota again. So I think in their minds, they're like, okay, if we can just, get Giolito, maybe we can make a little bit of a run there. I'm excited the Guardians actually did something positive for their baseball team to win. That's actually pretty cool. What I don't understand is how the Reds can, like, let's say if we were doing like a waiver wire for like fantasy, you couldn't just pick up 5 people at once, one person, then it keeps going through. I think that's interesting that there's no like limit to it. Like, you can just get as many as do you want them all, or you want 1, do you want 2? And you just go from there. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And, Art talked about the Giants not getting anybody. They're separated by the Reds by a couple games. 1 game that separates you in August could be the difference in September. And it's just crazy to think about. I think we haven't seen this a lot before in MLB. This is the first time I've really remembered it in recent memory. And hopefully it's something they change to make it a more even playing field. There's already no salary cap as is. So, gentlemen, anything else to add?
As someone who owns Hunter Renfroe and Harrison Bader, I think it's an upgrade for Hunter, because he wasn't really playing. He was playing just about as much anyway. He was going to be like a weak side platoon, I think, best case scenario. Bader's great at defense. They're going to love him in the outfield. But I think, like, they're all just going to be now sharing time. So it's kind of it sucks across, I think, for fantasy just in general.
Yeah. It's interesting. Somebody of Lucas Giolito's caliber will have been on 3 teams this season.
Did you see the tweet? Lucas Giolito and Reynaldo Lopez have been traded 3 times together and both signed by the Guardians. So this is the 4th team that they have been
From the Nationals to the White Sox.
White Sox to the Angels, Angels to the Guardians together.
No way.
Yeah, together.
Either they love each other or they hate each other. There's no in
Eskimo
between.
brothers.
Oh, maybe.
At this point, why not? What are you doing? They're probably rooming with each other.
Yeah.
Do you think the Indians can do anything to help? I mean, they're noted as being
Maybe
pitching gurus.
If they're one of the 5 staffs, coaching pitching development teams that I would be excited for Lucas to go to. Yeah.
And he's had a relatively bounce back year compared to last year. He was
the last few weeks have been, absolutely brutal.
Yeah.
But no one goes to the Angels, especially a pitcher, and does better.
That's true.
And he had a couple tough matchups too. I remember he had an outing at Atlanta where he was good through the first 3 and then got bombed in the 4th. It's got to be tough, especially moving from, Midwest to West Coast, different time zones, different schedule.
Plus, I'm pretty sure he's going through a divorce too. Not to get personal on it, but
how do you know that?
He does interviews with Chris Rose all the
Oh.
time on the Rose rotation. Now, I don't think that actually came up, but because of that, I'm just a fan of good old Lucas, and I'm pretty sure that's I think that's he's going through that. He may have posted it on online.
Wow, what a third.
Like
Do
an
we know
Instagram.
any girls in the Cleveland area that have a Bumble or Tinder and see if we see Lucas on there?
Yeah.
That would be
See
the
if they
real.
can get him.
That will be the real test to see if he's single.
To raise his spirits. Yeah.
It is interesting to see. I feel like most of the time I'm the one that finds the tidbits of players, random stuff about their personal life. But you're right. I mean, compound that with a divorce, and he's probably not in the best mental space to pitch. But fellas, good talk. Can't believe we're into September tomorrow as we go into the last month of fantasy baseball and essentially the last month of the regular baseball season. Anything that you would keep your eye on, whether that be playoff races, betting wise, as of teams you think it can make a run, players to target strategy?
I will say that the Justin Verlander strikeout on Miggy was plus 350. So I did pretty good there.
I love that.
Yeah, it was a good one. I knew Verlander was going to bring it, but overall, just going to close out the season as good as you can. I'm out of fab in 2 of my leagues, so I got like $3 left in Larf. So I don't know what the hell I'm going to do there. That was oversight. Stay on your fab. If you're still in this, keep pushing. You never know. Even if you finish top 5 instead of like 7th or 8th, keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
And the pitching is going to get even crazier. So make sure you keep an eye on probables and who they're going to pick and bring up and all those different types of things. So, and other than that, just enjoy it. It's championship time.
Yeah, pitching at this time of year, matchups coming. You look at the schedule. If that's something you like to do, the schedule's more important, almost more important than talent at this point.
Especially teams are going to look completely different in 2 weeks too, when they start bringing up and sitting people and all this kind of stuff. So yeah, this is the time when the most people leave, and this is the opportunity where there's tons of stuff going on all the time. So you could really make a lot of strides in these next 4 weeks.
Yeah, last season. I jumped from 4th or 5th to 2nd in the last week of the season. So that, keep going, keep grinding. You can climb, you can definitely climb, and you can also play spoiler. This is fun. Have your fun. I'm playing spoiler in the home league because I had a tough run of poor losses in the head-to-head. So I'm hoping to play spoiler. Get your yum any way you can this fantasy baseball season.
Let me tell you, Art actually had a really brutal stretch. This is the reality of head-to-head leagues: is you play someone that's higher scoring than you. But seeing that L7 next to his name, I felt bad. But oh man, woke up with a smile each day, and that number just got larger and larger, and the playoff chances went down and down.
7 straight losses in the crunch time of the season.
Yeah, in the summer days where the days are longest, they were especially long for Art. as he endured loss after loss.
We don't have to do 7 losses in this, we don't have to say it 7 times.
We don't. But thanks for everybody that tunes into Triple Play Fantasy.
Yes, thank you guys.
We are going to keep bringing it through the rest of the season because we do not like to take weeks off here. So we'll be back at you next week. Comment with Bring Out Your Dead. Let us know any questions that you might have and tune in. And to steal David's saying for this week, we're going to make like a bread truck and haul these buns. See you in week 24.